Hello YouTube, welcome back to my channel. So in today's tutorial, we're going to go ahead and learn how to deploy blockchain contracts like this, the crypto coin we created in the last tutorial using on Remix. So in this tutorial, we're going to go ahead, I'm going to show how to do the same thing but by using Brownie. And Brownie is a Python library for building blockchain application and running and writing blockchain contracts. So we're going to go over Brownie. I've already made videos about Brownie in my other tutorials, so if you haven't checked those tutorials, you can feel free to check those out. But in this tutorial, I'm also going to go over the basic and explain to you, but I'm not going to go into depth about the basic stuff. But I'm going to leave a small this readme file that you can read about it to understand the Brownie just in a bit of detail, and you can also go in the official documentation of Brownie and read more about it. So let's get started. So the first thing we need to actually do is to actually have to install Brownie. So I have this link here. I'm going to give you the link to this repository that contains the crypto coin that you're trying to create, the code, and all these readme file instructions on how to set it up. Okay, so there's a link to the brownie.readme docs link. Okay, so you can actually go ahead, just click this link to actually read the official readme Brownie documentation. So the first you're going to do, I have simplified things for you. So the first you're going to do, you need to install Brownie. So you just copy this command and paste it in your terminal to install Brownie. You don't need to create a virtual environment, so you just copy this and paste it inside of your terminal and then run this, or your CMD and then run this. You don't have to actually you don't have to create a virtual environment. You don't have to. So don't create a virtual environment. Just simply copy this command and paste it inside of your inside of your terminal or your CMD if you're on Windows. Okay. So after that, we need also you need to go ahead, actually after running these two commands, you need to go ahead and run this command to install the Brownie. Okay, so Brownie is just the Ethereum Python library for working with Ethereum, right? So once we have that installed, we can simply create a project. And to create a project is very simple. You just have to say Brownie in it to create a project. Okay, so let me go ahead and let's create a project. I already have Brownie installed, so I'm not going to go over that. So let me just make this a bit bigger for you guys so that you guys can see. So I'm just going to make a directory. So I'm going to let me just mkdir, and I'm going to call this directory coin. Okay, so I'm going to go coin, and I'm going to change directory into my coin folder. So I'm going to change directory into coin just like this and simply press enter. So right now I'm in this directory. You can see we have nothing inside. So let's go ahead and actually create a Brownie project inside of this directory. So I'm simply going to copy this command, copy it, and simply move it inside of my terminal and simply just paste it there, paste it. And once we have that pasted, this should go ahead and install Brownie on our local machine. So it should give it some time and it should initiate a Brownie project. So you just have to give it some time and that should be done. So you can see here our Brownie project is already being created. So one of the things that you have to notice, I have stated it here, your repository, your project directory needs to be empty before you init a new Brownie project. So it needs to be an empty directory before you init a Brownie project. So once you have that done, you see the Brownie project has been created and give you this information. So if I do an ls, you can see I have all these folders and stuff like that. Okay, so if you want to understand what all this folder means, or the whole file structure, I went ahead and explain the file structures here. I explained it also in my last video. You can go ahead and check that video out, or you can just read this readme docs, just a short description of our folder structure. So the documents folder, our contracts folder, so we're going to keep our contracts, and then our scripts folder is going to write our deploy scripts and other scripts that we need, and then our test folder is where we're going to running our test, right? So that's what the two main things we're going to talk about. These are the main folders we're going to be working. But if you want to work with if you want to understand the whole folder structure, you can just file structure, you can just read all this, or you can check out my previous video on Brownie. So once we have for now, we'll come back to this test in a second when we need to deploy it to a testnet. But for now, I'll just scroll down here and we need to go to the local testnet. So first of all, we're going to deploy it locally on our machine, right? Now on our machine, we don't have a blockchain, right? So we don't have a blockchain running locally on our machine. So we need a blockchain or any library that can simulate a blockchain for us to be able to run it. Well, likely enough, there is a blockchain library that can run locally on our machine, meaning that we have a local blockchain on our computer, and we can use it's called ganache-cli. So Ganache is a JavaScript library that simulates a blockchain locally on your machine. So you need to get this installed, and you can just use npm install Ganache. Okay, in this case you're going to be using ganache-cli. So you can go ahead and read about Ganache on the web. You can just search on Google what is Ganache and read about it. But in this case you're going to be using ganache-cli specifically because you want to be using in the terminal. So just go ahead and say npm install globally, and then say -g, and then this Ganache and then -cli. So that's how you can have Ganache installed. So go ahead and get Ganache installed on your machine. If you want to use a GUI version of Ganache, there's also a GUI version of Ganache, but just use the CLI just to keep things simple. Okay, so use the CLI version of Ganache and that should be okay. So once we have that, let's go ahead and create our contract. So let me just go ahead and open up my favorite text editor. In this case, it's going to be VS Code. So let me just minimize this a bit. So minimize this a bit and then clear the terminal. So I'm going to open up my Visual Studio Code, and feel free to use any editor that you're comfortable using. I'm just going to go on with VS Code. So once my VS Code is opened up, let's go ahead. Let me just close this. I don't need this. I'm just going to go inside of the contracts folder. So inside of the contract folder, we're going to be writing all our contracts. So I'm just going to create a file here, and I'm simply going to call it coin.sol. Okay, so I'm going to simply call it coin.sol and then just press enter. So if you don't have the Solidity extension for VS Code installed, you can just go to the extensions tab and then search for Solidity and then just install the Solidity extension for VS Code. Okay, so this we're going to keep our contract. So I'm just going to go back to my go back to Remix. So Remix is right here. So I'm just going to go back to Remix, and I'm simply going to go ahead and copy that contract that we created. So I'm just going to select everything here and then simply go ahead and paste it in my VS Code, the contracts.sol, the coin.sol folder. So I'm going to paste it here, and that's all we need. So because I've already written this contract already, I'm just going to paste it here. If you haven't watched this tutorial or where we went over and written this contract in our testnet using, then go back and check the last. Okay, so now that we have this already the contract already written and now we have it deployed, but that is great. So we already written and now we have it deployed, but that is great. So we don't need Remix anymore, so I can just go ahead and close that off. So once I have that done closed, I can just go ahead and leave the website just there. So once I have that done, so once I have that closed, I can simply go ahead and go back to my VS Code. So now once you have our contract, you can simply compile the contract. And to compile the contract in Brownie is actually very simple. So I'm just going to go in my terminal and then do an else and make sure that I'm in the root directory of my project. So I'm just going to do brownie compile. So if you want to check the Brownie, you can just do brownie help, and this should return to the help option of Brownie, where you can see the different options that you have. So once you can see, we have all these options here. So we have Brownie init to initiate a project. We can have Brownie bake to copy templates from Brownie mix templates. We have the compile, which is used to compile our code. We have accounts, we have networks and all of that. And then we have run test, we have run and then run test. Run is used to run our different scripts inside of our scripts folder. Test is used to run all the tests inside of our test folder. So once we have all that, that's great. So you can simply go ahead and simply use the Brownie compile to compile the source files, okay, the contract source files. So I'm going to close this and then simply do a brownie compile, just like this, brownie compile, and this is going to go ahead and compile our Brownie contract. Okay, so once the contract is compiled, if you go inside of our build folder, we should see the contract being compiled here. So you can go into contracts and you're supposed to see this coin.json file, which contains the ABI of our contract, and the ABI stands for application binary interface. And an application binary interface just tells Solidity and other programming languages which contracts which functions can be called, their inputs and stuff like that when working with a specific contract. So you can see here it is the ABI of our contract, and the ABI is stored in the build under the contracts folder. So great. So once we have our code compiled, that is great. So our code compiled without any error. So once we have that compiled, now we can go ahead and try to deploy it. And to deploy it, we can deploy it either locally or on a testnet. In this case, I'm going to show how to deploy it locally. So make sure that you have the ganache-cli installed as I showed you. So so you just just go here and just do an npm install ganache-cli. So if I go here, npm install ganache-cli to have the ganache-cli installed. If you don't have it installed, then this won't work. Okay, so once I assume that you already have that installed, I'm just going to clear the terminal, and I'm simply going to go ahead and let me go back to VS Code. So instead of my VS Code, I'm going to go into the script folder, and I'm going to create a new folder, and file is going to be called deploy.py. So inside of deploy.py, that's we're going to be go ahead and deploy our contract. So the first thing we need to do is actually import the contract, and Brownie is very smart. So you just have to say from Brownie import coin. So Brownie automatically knows where coin is and what coin is, and is going to go ahead and simply get it. So Brownie is very smart. And also I'm also going to import accounts. So accounts, and yeah, that's all we need for now. So let's go ahead and actually deploy it. So to deploy it, you need two functions. So what you need any other function, and also you need one more function called the main function. So dev, and I'm going to simply say main, and then this here we're just going to go ahead and print a simple maybe hello hello main. Okay, just like that. And also we need to have another function to actually deploy this contract. So I can actually go to my terminal, and then in my terminal I can just say brownie, and then I can simply say run, and then scripts. Remember the run contract, the run method, right? It runs all the code inside of a script. So if you just scroll here, you can see run, and then right. So I'm just going to go ahead and press enter here. So this is going to go ahead and actually run our deploy script, and it's going to actually get this main function. So whatever is inside of the main function is what is going to be obtained, right? So if you have any other function, you must obtain, right? So if you have any other function, you must call it instead of the main function. So let's create another function here, and I'm just going to call it this one, deploy, simple deploy. And this function is what you're going to be using to deploy a function. So you can just say print, and then you can say hello deploy. Okay, just like that. So let's go ahead and see what we got. So we're here is still taking some time to run, so let's give it some time. So let me just go here and see what we get. My PC is a bit slow, especially if I'm recording, so just bear with me. So once that's done, you can see that it went ahead and launched the ganache-cli automatically. So Brownie is very smart. You don't have to tell it to launch the ganache-cli. It will automatically pick it up, launch it, and then identify which port is running on. So ganache-cli runs on port 8545, and it creates for you by default 10 different accounts. So you can see it got all that information automatically. So Brownie is very smart. So you can see we have this hello from main being printed here. So now you can go ahead and call the deploy function. So in here, instead of my deploy script, I can just go ahead and simply say call the deploy function. And now if I have called the deploy function, it's going to call this function. It's going to run, because the only entry point inside of this script is the main function. So if I deploy this again, if I run the scripts again, it's actually going to go ahead and actually call the main script, and then the main script is going to go ahead and call the deploy, and the deploy is just simply going to print hello deploy. Okay, so that's all you're going to do. So let's check if this runs. So this will take some time, and it should be done. Yeah, so now you can see that is done, and it simply printed out hello deploy. So everything works as expected. So great. So now that I have that, I'm just going to clear my terminal, and I'm going. So once I have my terminal cleared out, I can just simply go back into my VS Code. So instead of my VS Code here, this we're going to be writing our deploy contract, right? So the first we need to get to deploy our contract is we need an account to deploy our contract, right? So by default, as I told you earlier, by default Ganache will create for you 10 default contracts you can use, right? And you can use this in Brownie, and Brownie automatically pick up these contracts. So let me just go back to my VS Code, and instead of my VS Code, I'm just going to delete this part right here. And in here, I'm going to first go ahead and get a contract. So I'm going to go ahead and get a contract. So I'm going to say account. And account is going to be accounts, right? Accounts, and I'm going to get the very first account. So this accounts comes as a list. Accounts, right? Let me get the spelling right. So accounts comes as a list. So I'm going to get the very first contract of that list, right, which Ganache creates for us by default, and default by their 10 contracts. So I'm going to simply go ahead and say coin, and coin is going to be the following, right? So it's going to be our coin dot deploy, just like this, and deploy. And we need to go ahead and pass in a dictionary right here. So we're going to say pass in a dictionary, and dictionary we're going to say from, and then you're going to say which account you are deploying from. So I'm going to say account, which you just got right here. So this is going to be account. I got the spelling of account wrong. So you're going to be deploying from account. So let me just get the spelling right here. So we're going to say we are deploying this, but where is it? Where are we deploying from? Which account are we deploying it from? And you're going to say the accounts, this account variable that we got from the Ganache default account that I created. So once we have that deployed, we can just print the account has been deployed. So I'm just going to go ahead and print. Let me just use an F string here. So I'm going to say coin contract, deployed, and then deployed at, and I can just go ahead and specify where it was deployed. And I'm going to get the address of this. So I'm going to say coin dot address, just like that. So this is going to return me the address of that coin, and then you're going to simply say where that coin was deployed. So that's all we need to do. So now we can go ahead and actually run this again, and this is actually going to go ahead and deploy our contracts on our local Ganache network. So I'm just going to clear this up and then simply run the deploy scripts again. So this is going to go ahead start Ganache, and then create for us 10 default accounts, and then go ahead and simply deploy those accounts. So in this case, you're going to get the very first account that of all the accounts that are created, and simply deploy it, deploy our contract using that specific account. So now you can see that my account has been deployed, and it has been deployed at this specific point, right? Because this is what you're trying to print out, a contract deployed at coin contract deployed at this specific address, right? So this is running on our local Ganache network. So account has been deployed, and that's how you can deploy an account using Brownie on your local machine and ganache-cli. So now let's assume that you want to go ahead and install and deploy this a contract on a testnet, right? Or like Rinky, like the way we did in Remix. So let's go ahead and actually do that. So to do this, we actually need to get we can specify which accounts to use. We can install different accounts on Ganache. So let's go ahead and actually get which account we want to use, and then get the account information. So by default, the account that we are going to use, right, by default is going to be the local the local Ganache network, right? So you can actually get the list of all the accounts that you want. So you can just go ahead and just clear this up. So you can just say brownie accounts list, just like that. I think this should return to you all the list of all the accounts that you have. I think we also need to have Ganache running, but let's see if this is going to work. If it doesn't work, then you have to go open at another terminal and then start Ganache and then run this command. But I think it should work. Let's just see. Okay, so right now I have this account created. I added this default account on my network, but for now, if you start Ganache, it should also list all the networks that you have, right? So this account that I have, so I can also check the networks, so networks and not accounts. So Ganache networks, I think it's called networks or network list. Let's just search it, and it's going to return to us a list of all the networks that on a machine. So you can see we have all these other networks. So don't worry about this inferior networks. I added them later on because I used to have I have this on my machine for a long time, and I've been practicing doing different stuff. So the account that you're going to be using is a development account because you're running this locally. But if you want to use other accounts, like you can use the Ethereum accounts, and you can use Rinky like they use. You can use Kovan. You can also use the Ganache local. So all these networks are persistent, but the ones here are not persistent, right? So we're going to be using the, let me show you how to choose which network you can use, right? So let's go ahead and choose which network you can use. So let's first of all, we need to go into our code here, and I need to go ahead and tell it write as given function. So I'm going to call this function dev, and I'm going to call it get_account. And get account is not going to take in any parameters. This get account is going to do the following. So I'm going to check if network. So I need to import something from Ganache. I'm going to say networks. I think I called it's called network and not network. So this network, and then I'm going to simply say it's going to simply say if network dot show underscore active. So this is going to show the active network. If the active network is equals to development, right? I show the development network. So if it's equals to the development network, then what you're simply going to do is going to get the very first account of the default account that are created on Ganache. So we're simply going to return account. Okay, and I'm going to return the very first account. Okay, what if it's not a development network? So it's going to be the other networks, right? So we're going to go ahead and return those other networks. So you can simply say return, and then you can simply do accounts accounts.add. So you can add accounts in different ways. You can add accounts through the terminal. There are 3 different ways of adding accounts in Ganache. You can add it through the terminal, you can add it through by using a config file, and also you can there's another way, the third way, I forgot the third way, but there are 3 different ways you can add accounts. If you guys want to make a tutorial on how to add accounts, let me know in the comment section below. So I'm simply going to say .add, and then I'm going to go ahead and specify some values here. So we place these values instead of a config file. So I'm going to go ahead and say config and the config. So what's this config that you have imported from Brownie? So once what to do to use this config, you're going to go ahead and create a file. You're going to call it brownie-config config.yaml. So brownie config is going to be a YAML file. This we are going to keep all our configurations, right? So it's very easy to use. So I'm just going to go ahead and actually fill this config file, and then this config file, we're going to fill it with all the configuration information that we need. So the first thing we're going to simply tell Ganache to use, we're going to be using a .env file because we want to push our private keys and other stuff to GitHub or any other repository, right? So we're going to go using .env, and to specify that to Ganache that you're using to specify to Brownie that you want to use a .env, you have to say .env, and then you have to say .env. So we need to create a .env file here. So I'm just going to go ahead and create a file here, and this file I'm just going to say this is going to be a .env file. So the env file, that's going to keep all our file, and this will not be pushed to any repository. So once we have that done, I can just go ahead and specify wallets. So we'll come back to just a second. I'll come back to this env file. So to this env file. So I'm going to say wallets, and I'm going to say from underscore key, and from key is going to be a private key. So it's going to be a private key of our metamask account. So I need to go to my website, need to go to my browser, and on my browser I'm going to simply go inside of my brownie section, and I'm simply going to go ahead and get my private key. So I'm going to go in here and just click on this section, and this will return to me simply I still want to get the private key of my account. So I can just click account details, and this should create a pop-up, and this pop-up you can just click on export private key. So in here you need to pass in your password. So I'm going to say type my password, and then get access to my private key. So once I have my private key created, my private key access, so I'm just going to copy it and go ahead and paste it inside of my env file. And always make sure never ever expose your private key to anyone, because if I have access to your private key, then I can access all your funds. So if you have actual Ethereum, then I'll be able to withdraw all your money and just scam you, right? So never show anyone your private key. This is just my fake account that I'm using, so never show your private key to anyone. So you can even see the warning from metamask here. So never do that. So I'm just going to copy it and then just go to my my terminal, and inside of here I can just go ahead and say private key. So I'm going to say private underscore key, and this is going to be what I just copied from my metamask. So I'm just going to go ahead and actually paste that in there. So that's going to be my private key, and I'm simply going to go ahead and paste that in there. That's all I need to do. So once I have my private key pasted in there, I can simply go ahead and get access to the information that I need. So I can just go back into my config file, and I can just go ahead and simply say the $, and then the $, this way, and then the curly braces, and then simply type in the private key, which is the name that we gave to the private key instead of our config file. So that's how you can, instead of our env file, so that's how you can get information from that specific env file. So great. So now we're able to get access to our information right here, right? So great. So once I have that done, I can simply go back into my my deploy script, and instead of my deploy script, instead of add accounts, I can just go ahead and specify how I want these accounts to be added, right? So to do this is very simple. We just have to go ahead and specify the config. So we want to get the config variable. So getting the config, and then from the config you want to go ahead and get the wallet, and then the wallet you want to get the from. Okay, so I'm just going to say config, lowercase, so config, and then from config I want to go ahead and get wallets. I call it wallets, so I'm going to go here and say wallets, and wallets is what you have specified here, so wallets, right? And from wallets I want to go ahead and get the from key, so I'm going to go back here, and once I get the wallets I want to go ahead and get the from key, so I'm going to paste the from key in here. And then yeah, that's all I need to add a new account to my ganache. Okay, so that's how you can add an account to using the config file, and you can also add it through the terminal, which is the most secure way, because it encrypts your password and private key basically. So once we have that, I can go ahead, instead of just getting the default account, the initial account all the time, I can just go ahead and here I can simply go ahead and say get underscore account, right? So get account, and call this function, and if the account is default, if I didn't specify which network to use, it will default to development, and we'll say use the first account from that 10 accounts that have been created. Also you're going to go ahead and go into here and then get get this private key, and you're going to, which is right here, and you're going to use that private key to access that specific account that we have on our metamask. So let's go ahead and actually try this out one more time. So I'm going to go inside of my terminal, and instead of my terminal I can just say brownie run, and this is going to be run scripts, and there's description the deploy script. So you can also go ahead and specify which network we want to use to run this. So you can just say hyphen, and you can say network, and you can say network can be any network you want. So I want to use the ring-EB network in this case, but this is not going to work. So ring-EB, okay, and this is not going to work because we don't have something set up. Okay, so once we have this done, we need to go ahead and actually set up a couple of things for this to actually work. So you can try this out, but I can assure you it's not going to work. So once we have this done, instead of our config file, we need to add in a couple of things. So we also need to add in our Infura account. So let's go back into my GitHub page, and let's go ahead and explain to you how to deploy this to an actual testnet. So we have gone over how to do it on local testnet, and now let's go over how to deploy it to an actual testnet. So that we need two things. The first is the private key, which you already have. You can go ahead and see how you can access the private key using this link right here. And also we need an Infura Web3 project ID. And so you need to sign up for Infura. Just go ahead and click on this link, and it gives you all the instructions on how to sign up for Infura, how to create a new project, and how to get your project ID. So I'm just going to go into my Infura page. I already have my Infura account created, and I created a new project called Python Brownie, and I'm simply going to go ahead and actually copy that Infura the Infura ID. So I'm going to copy it, and I'm simply going to go into my VS Code. Instead of my VS Code, I'm simply going to go ahead and say the following. So it must be the same, must be this, right? So even if you go back in here, you see it failed, and it said that Web3 Infura project ID. So it's looking for Web3 Infura project ID instead of your development environment, right? So instead of your development environment, so I need to go ahead and say Web3 underscore Infura underscore project ID, and then pass in that project ID that I got. So I'm Web3 underscore Infura underscore project underscore ID, and this is going to be equals to the ID that we just copied. So I'm just going to go ahead and I created a new file, my bad. So I'm going to go into my env file and simply pasted this right here. So I'm going to go ahead and delete the new account that I just created, the new file. Okay, it's actually not here, so it's fine. So I've just also go ahead and specify the Infura, and that's how you can specify it. So once we have that done, let's go ahead and try and see if this is going to work now. So I'm just going to go ahead and try this out again. So run this again, and let's see if it's going to work. So we got an error again. It says that unable to find this environment file. So it's called Web3 Infura project ID. So let me just go back in my GitHub and actually make sure I get that spelling right. So I'm going to go in here and then just copy this part right here, and then go and paste it. So I'm going to copy this and then go back into my VS Code, and then I think I made an error here, so I'm going to paste it. Yeah, that's all I need. I pasted it, and it should be able to get access to it. So if it doesn't, then we can go ahead and see what's wrong. So let's run this again, and hopefully it works. I don't know why it failed that time, so let's try it again, and it should work this time. If it doesn't, we'll go back and fix that error. So it failed again, so good. So let's go back into our VS Code, and let's go into the config file, and then I think we need to specify the networks that we're going to be working with. So in here, we're just going to specify the networks, and then pass in the network that we want to work with. So in this case, we're going to be working with the Infura the Infura ID in the Rinky network. So I'm going to go in here. I'm going to say networks. So networks, and then inside of here I'm going to create a list of all the networks I want to use. So the first network I want to use is going to be the Rinky network, and then the Rinky network, I can just go ahead and specify the Rinky network. We'll come back to just in a second. I can also use the development network, so development network. So this should work. If it doesn't, we can come back and settle the issues right here. So once I have that done, I can also specify whether we want verification or not. So, and I'll explain to you why I'm keeping verification and all of that. So verify, and let's say for now we can say true for Infura, and then for verify for a local network, you're going to say verify is going to be false. So I'm going to say verify, and this is going to be false. And I'll come back and explain to you all this just in a second, what you're meaning by verify, what we mean by networks, and all of that. So let's go ahead and try this one more time. So clear this up, and then simply try this one more time. So the network we want is the Rinky network, and then we simply run this one more time, and hopefully it should work this time. And maybe I didn't make any mistake inside of my env file. So Web3 Infura project ID, and that should be it. So let's check and see. Okay, we got it. It stopped working again. So let's see what the error was. Hello guys, yeah, so I found out the error that I did. I actually did a very silly error. So in here is supposed to be config, right? So not I got the spelling wrong for this file when renaming this file. So when creating this file, so let me just rename this file, and this should now be config, my bad. So brownie-config.yaml file. So my bad, sorry for that typo. So once I have that, now it should work. So hopefully it should work, and I'm just going to clear the terminal and then run it again. And so I'm going to say brownie run scripts / deploy scripts, and then -- network and the Rinky network. So now it should all work. So let's just wait for this to get completed. So now you can see that our contract has been deployed, and this is the transaction of that deployment, right? So it has been deployed on the Rinky-B testnet, and you can go ahead and actually search for that. So I can just copy this right here, and I can just copy that information, and I can go to etherscan. So I can go to etherscan. I can just go here and then go to etherscan, and I can just select the network that I want to work with. So I want to work with the Rinky-B network, so select the Rinky-B network, and then we can just paste in that contract address, and we can be able to see that contract being deployed on Rinky-B. So let's just wait for this to load up, and we can paste in the contract address, and the contract address is this one right here. So I'm just going to go back in here and just wait for this to load. I can just paste in my contract address right here, paste this in here, and then simply click on search to search for that contract that we just deployed. So search for it, and you can see our contract is right here. So this is our deployed contract, and has been deployed about 40 seconds ago. Great. So one thing you can also notice is that our contract is not verified, and to verify our contract, you can just click here, and then you can go ahead and paste in the code of your contract and other stuff to verify the contract. But let me show you how to verify the contract using Brownie, and is so that's how you can simply deploy your contract to a testnet. So let me just show you how to actually get this contract verified on using Brownie. So I'm going to go in here, and inside of my config file, remember we specified verify here to be true. So on a development network, we can verify it because we don't have, it's a local network and it lacks some features. So we are going to be using the testnet, and the testnet is just a mock version of the actual blockchain, right? So we're just going to go ahead, and you can actually mock a blockchain locally on machine, but we're not going to do that in this tutorial. So I'm going to go ahead and you can say that for Rinky-B, you can say verified is going to be true. So let me show you how to verify your contracts when deploying your contracts, how to verify them using Brownie. So I'm just going to go ahead into my scripts, and I'm going to go into my deploy, and here that you're deploying the contract, you can just go ahead and specify the publish source, and we're going to set it to be true, right? So I'm going to say publish just like this, publish underscore source, and you can just go ahead and specify this to be true. So it's going to publish the source whenever I deploy to a network, right? But sometimes you might deploy to your local ganache network, which cannot verify, so you get an error. Or sometimes you might go ahead and try to deploy it to a testnet like Rinky-B, which has the verification functionality, and that should work. So just in our config here, we have specified the networks that we have, and then whether it's verified or not verified. So we are network agnostic, right? You can decide whether to verify it or not verify depending on which network that you're running on, right? So do that is very simple. So I'm going to go in and say config. So I'm going to go to our config and make sure that you import config right here. So I'm going to say config, and then you're going to go ahead to under the network section. So I'm going to go ahead and say networks, just like this. Under the networks, you're going to go ahead and get the active network, which is going to be networks network dot show underscore active, which is going to give us the active network, and then from there I'm going to go ahead and get the verify. So verify just like that. You can also use the get keyword if you want, just in case to avoid any errors, because this is simply a dictionary, right? So get verified, and verified is we're going to say verified, get the verified. So if it's on a development network, verified is going to be false. If it's on a testnet like Rinky-B, the verify is going to be true, because Rinky-B has the ability to verify our contract. So yeah, that's basically it, what we need to do to make our verification process network agnostic and not depend on the network that you're working on, right? So once we have that, we don't have to come in and change the value manually all the time. So once we have all that information, we can go ahead and simply try to deploy deploy our contracts and verify it. So one thing I must let you know, this is not going to work because we need one more thing for this to work. So let's just try it out. It's going to deploy the contract, but it's going to fail to verify the contract, right? So let's just wait for this to get completed, and let me show you that. Yeah, so you can see that the contract has been deployed successfully at this specific address, but if we failed and to verify our contract, right? So one thing we need to do is, you can see that is lacking this key in the environment variable. So it's lacking this inside of our environment variable. So what is this etherscan token? So let me just copy it. Just copy this and go inside of our Brownie, our env file, and I'm simply going to go ahead and paste it here. So paste it there. So what key are we going to use for this value? So we need to go ahead, go to our browser, go to etherscan.io, and in etherscan.io, this way we are going to actually check whether the contract is verified or not, right? So we're going to go inside of there and simply go under the etherscan login page, and here this is where we need to actually sign up. So you can sign up here and then get access to an API key, right? So I've already signed up, so I'm just going to go ahead and log into my account. I can just go ahead and close this off. I can just go ahead and log into my account, and in here I'm just going to go ahead and pass in my password. So I'll pass in my password and then click I'm not a robot, recache. So once I have that done, I can simply go ahead and click on login, and this should log me into my account. So into my account, I'm just going to go ahead and get my API key. Okay, so if you're not to do this process, you can just Google online of how to sign up for Etherscan. It is very simple to do. You can just go ahead and sign up, and then from there you can get an API key. So I just go to API key section, and inside of this section I'm just going ahead and copy this API key. So you can add more API keys here by clicking this, and you can add more API keys. So I'm just going to copy this API key, and don't use my API key. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and paste it here. So once I have this, now we have this variable, this environment variable inside of our file, right? So now we should be able to verify our account. So I'm just going to deploy this one more time, and this time you should go ahead, deploy it, and also be able to verify our account. So you can see our contract has been deployed on this specific address, so it's waiting for verification to complete. So you just have to give it some time for the verification to go through, and then our contract is going to be deployed and also verified. So it's already deployed, so we're just waiting for the verification process to be done. So you can actually just copy this right here. I can copy this information right here, copy it. I can go back to Etherscan, and let's wait for the verification to be going through, because we can see verification is pending. So once the verification is done, we can go ahead and verify our contract on etherscan.io. So yeah, so now you can see everything is done, and our verification has been as we have passed the verification. So you can just copy this contract right here, and then just this address right here, and then search for it on Etherscan. So I'm going to go back to Etherscan, and then in here I can just go ahead and specify that I want a ring-key network. So I can just go ahead and specify I want a ring-key network, and in here I can just go ahead and paste that contract, and now we should see that our contract should be verified. So I'm going to paste this address right here, and the contract address, and then search for that contract on Etherscan. So you can see now it has been called, it's called coin. So you can see coin has been deployed. So if I go in here, you can see now on our contract part we have this green button with the tick, just like where we have the blue ones on Twitter. So you can see this that shows that our contract has been deployed and it has been verified. So if you go here, you can see all the code that we have has been pasted in here and all that information. So we can actually go ahead and write contract where we can interact the contract and stuff like that. So if you go and read the contract section, if you go on the minter, this is the address who minted this account, and if you go, this is the address of my ring-key testnet. So you can go in here and see it ends in B4B6, and if you go in here, you can see it's also 4B6 right here. So this is my ring-key test at my ring-key test public address, and this is the one which deployed it. That's why it's the minter of that contract, right? So you can also go in here, you can connect your metamask, and then you can interact with the contract right here inside of Etherscan. So you can go ahead and actually interact with all these functions right here and get all that information. So great. So we can connect your metamask just by clicking on this, and then interact with this given functions that we have here. So great, we have been able to deploy a contract to ring-key, and then you can we have been able also to verify the contract and all that stuff. So you can actually just copy the contract address and be able to build a front-end application to use this contract if you want to. So great, that's all successful. So now let me go ahead and do one more thing. Again, if you guys are getting any error of insufficient error, make sure that insufficient funds, make sure that your ring-key network has sufficient ether, and I show you how to get ether using the faucet. So the link is the description of how to get the faucet link to get more ether, okay, if you need any. Yeah, so yeah, once we have that, let me show you how to run tests on your deployed network, right? So let me just show you how to run tests. So once you have our contract being deployed and all of that, let's go ahead and show you how to run some tests. So I'm just going to go ahead and close, or yeah, we can leave this one, and so you can go inside of our test folder. Sorry, not this, instead of our test folder right here, and you can create a file. We're just going to call this one test coin, coin.py. Just going to call it test coin.py. So inside of our test the test coin.py file, we're going to go ahead and write our test here. So we're going to need to import a couple of things. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to import the contract and the accounts, right? So from brownie, I'm going to go ahead and import the following. So I'm going to import coin contract, which is a coin contract, and then also going to import the accounts right here. So brownie is very smart and it's automatically going to know that you're talking about this coin contract. So I'm going to write the function, and the first function is to test the mint pass. So test underscore mint. And if you're working with we're writing test here, we're going to be using PyTest for this. So it follows the same convention as using PyTest. So make sure that your functions always start with test, even your files start with test or something like that. So there's if you're not about how to use PyTest, I have a whole tutorial on my channel on PyTest, so go ahead and check that video out. I'm going to keep the link in the description, or I'm going to keep a card here. If I forget to keep that, then you can also go ahead and find it in the channel's main page, okay, and the link is in the description. So the first thing I'm going to do is actually need to we follow three main processes. The first one is arrange, right? Arrange. So the arrange is double R, I believe. So arrange, and then we need to go ahead and act. So arrange, act, and then finally we need to assert. So assert, just like this, assert, and this is going to be basically a Python assert statement, right? So the first we need to do is to arrange, and arrange is just basically setting up the contract, deploying it, and all of that. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy this right here. So this is a part of deploy. I'm going to copy it and simply go in here and paste it here. So paste it here, and that's our arrange part. So I thought there are three processes of doing the deployment, right? So the first one is the arrange part, and to deploy this, we're going to deploy this using just on our local network, okay? So we're going to say account. If you want to do it on a testnet, just go ahead and get account, and also and then also import config here, and then the same process, right? So great. So I'm just going to deploy it actually on using a testnet. To test it using a testnet, I'm going to just test it on my local ganache-cli blockchain. But if you want to use it using you want to test it using an actual testnet, and the process is very simple, like the way we did, but make sure that you import get account, you copy it or paste it here, or create another folder called utils, and then have that function in there, and then import it into your code, and then you use it that way, and then everything remains the same. Also import config for this part here, because here using the publish, okay? So but I'm going to be using my local ganache network for this, so I'm just going to continue here. So once we have our contract deployed, I want to go ahead and interact with this contract. So I'm going to have a transaction, so a transaction that typically called tx, and I'm going to say coin, the coin dot I'm going to call the mint contract, so the mint. And if you go in here, you can find we have the mint function right here. So this is the mint function, so I'm referring to that function, and I'm going to pass in so it takes in the following, right? So let's look at it. This contract, it takes in the address that you want to send some money to, and how much you want to send. So this can only be called by the person who deployed this contract. So you have to say account. They also say account, because account is the one who deployed this contract, right? So you have to use the account here. So the receiver must be the minter, the message destination must be the minter of this contract, and we use this account one to this account right here to mint that contract. So once we have that done, to deploy the contract rather, so once we have that done, we also need to specify how much we want to div. So I'm just going to use some random values. I'm going to use 200, but for in reality you can use something like an ether value, okay? And then I'm going to specify the from. So from, right? So from which account is this transaction coming from? So it's going to be account. So once we have that done, and we can simply go ahead and simply wait for this transaction to go through, because it can take some time. So wait, because we're going to be crossing a state change on the blockchain. So a state change is when you basically affect what's finally written on the contract. You cause a change on the blockchain. So once we have that, let me look at this contract one more time. So this contract is going to emit an event. So how can you get that event in here? So we can actually get the event and print it out. You're going to say tx dot you can say dot events, just like that. So this is going to return to us the events. So that's all we need to do. So it's going to return to us the event that has been emitted, and the event that has been emitted is the minted, and this is going to take in it's going to return to us the from and then the amount, okay? So that's all we need. So let me just close this for now. That's all we need to deploy that. So now we can go ahead and assert. So we can actually print the balance once we have this deployed. So we can also print we can print the balance of this. So it's going to be coin. So it's going to be coin, and then dot you can check the balance balances, right? It's called balances, and if you look here, you have the balances right here, and it's public, so you can access it from here. So balances, and we are going to check the balances of our account, right, which is just the account that we have here. So that's basically what we are going to simply do, and we're going to have the assert statement. So we're going to finally have the assert statement, and the assert should basically return a true or a false. So we're going to say assert, and we're going to simply say the coin. So the coin dot balances balances of our account. So the balances of our account should be equals to 200, right? Should be equals to 200, right? Because we deposit 200, so it should also be equals to 200. So we're going to assert this, and it's going to return to us that it's true or false. So let's go ahead and actually test it out. So let's go in here. I'm just going to click terminal, and I'm simply going to say brownie test, I think, and then run this, and this is going to go ahead and run all the test cases that are within our it's going to go ahead and run all the tests within our test folder. So it's going to go ahead and actually run this main test, and it's going to deploy the contract, send to 200 into that contract, and then it's going to print the event that has been emitted, and then you're going to check the balance, and you're going to check if the balance goes to 200, and if that is true, that means our account our function works as expected, right? So our test failed right here. It said that local variable accounts referred before sign. Okay, so I know what I made an error right here. So this is going to be supposed to be accounts and not accounts. So it just be this right here. So my bad for that. So I'm just go ahead and actually clear this and run that again. I think some of you might have noticed when I was typing it out, it's supposed to be accounts and not account on this section. So make sure that you change this to be accounts, okay, and not account. Yeah, so you can see our test passed successfully, so we get all that input. But one thing I notice that we are not getting any print statement. You can just do pass in the fns, and that should verbose every print statement, or we're supposed to pass in either v or an s. So let's try this out with an s, and it should show us those print statement. If it doesn't, then we're supposed to go with a v. I think v stands for verbose, or yeah. So yeah, I think you can get the print statement here. So contract has been deployed, and then you have minted. From this account, and then how much you have minted is this account, and that's the event, right? And then you simply printed the balance of that account, and you simply got that output right here. So that's all the information that we have. So once we have this, so let's test another function, which is the send function, which is this function right here. So let's write another test to test the test function. So I'm going to say def, and it's going to be def, and this is going to be called test underscore send function right here. So I'm going to copy everything from here. This going to copy everything from here. That's because it's going to basically the same thing, and I'm going to simply paste it in here. So once we are going to create a contract. You're going to send 200 to that contract, and then you're going to get the event, and then check the balance of that contract, right? Print out the balance of that contract. So once we have that done, I can simply go ahead and have another transaction to send some money. So I'm going to have another transaction. I can call it transaction 2, and this is going to be the following. So it's going to be coin dot send. So for send, what do we need to provide? We need to provide in the address from, and then the to address, and then the amount. So the from address is going to be our account, right? And the to address is going to be our accounts, right? Our accounts, you're going to get the second accounts. And then how much do you want to mint to it? I want to mint 150, because we have deposited 50, and I'm trying to send I'm trying to mint to it 50. So our balance should be 50 in our original account, right? Account of index 0. So once I have that, I'm going to go ahead and say transaction 2.wait. I'm going to wait on this transaction, and once this is done, I can simply go ahead and print the event, right? Because it's going to return to us an event. So transaction 2.events events just like this. So yeah, and it's going to return to us an event, and the event should be the sender, the receiver, and the amount, right? Yeah, so once we have that, I can simply go ahead and print the amount that is in the person account tools balance. So I'm going to say print coin. So coin dot let's say balances, and I want to check the balances of account with an index of 1, right? So this check for me the amount in that specific account. yeah, so that's basically it. And yeah, that's it. And then you can just go ahead and actually go ahead and assert the statement. So we're going to have the assert here. So assert, can just use that to be a, so assert, and you're going to assert the following. So we're going to assert the a coin, right, dot balances. So balances of the account, the original account, so be account, should be equals to 50, right? Because it was originally 200 and we sent 50 to someone, so now we should have only just 50 remaining. So that's basically it. And if this is true, then we have passed all our test cases. So let's go ahead and actually try this out. Okay, hopefully I didn't make any error, so I'm just going to clear the terminal and then simply run that final test. Yeah, so you can see the first test passed, but we failed on the second test. So we have one test passed and one failed. Okay, so it says that coin has no attribute send. Okay, so let's check the send part. So this send, is it called send? Yeah, it's called sender, not send, so I'm my bad for that. It's called sender. So let me just go in here and change send to be sender. So here change it to be sender, and yeah, that's basically it. Yeah, that's basically it. So you just have to change send to be sender. So let's go ahead and actually run this one more time. My bad for that error. I thought it was called send. I didn't know I called it sender. So let's just wait for this to get completed. So we got another error, says the sequence has incorrect length. So I expected 2 but got 3. So let me see where I probably made an error in sender. So we got in account 1, the first account. So send, we got in the first account, and then the so sender only needs to pass in the account. Let me just check this. So we need to pass in the receiver's account and then the amount that you want to send. Okay, so my bad, I was reading this part instead of this part of the code, so my bad. So I need to pass in the receiver and then the amount. Okay, so my bad for that. So I'm just going to go back in here, and this should be the receiver, and the receiver should be account this account with this index, and then the amount, and then we want to specify where this is coming from. So this is going to be here, and then I'm going to say from. So it's going to be from, and then from is going to be our account, right? So our account, because this account, which is the account of index 0, is one which is sending the amount, so it's going to be from this. So once I have that specified in here, also about for wait, I need to pass in 1 here, so I'm going to pass in 1 to wait for that contract as well. So I forgot to pass in 1 because we need to wait. So once that I have specified 1 instead of my wait, I also realized I did an error right here. So this is supposed to be also accounts and not account. So sorry for all that error. So this is accounts, right? You're getting the first one, and then this a wait, you're passing in 1 right here. So these are the errors that I have spotted, and yeah. So let's go ahead and actually run this again. Hopefully I didn't make any more errors. So let's just wait for those to go through. So the test has started. We have started our ganache with 10 accounts. Running on port 8545, and then the first test has gone through and it has passed, and then the second test has gone through, it has passed. So everything else worked as expected, right? So yeah, guys, so that's basically it. How to create your contract using Brownie, how to test it, how to deploy it to a test net, how to verify it, and all that information. So yeah, that's basically it for this tutorial. So you guys, if you enjoyed this tutorial, let me know how this tutorial was, if I'm making any errors, or if I'm doing something that you guys don't find interesting. Let me know of how you enjoyed this tutorial. Any feedback might be really helpful in making future videos on this. So thanks for watching, and if you are new to the channel, please kindly consider subscribing, liking this video, and sharing with anyone who you think might find it helpful. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one, and keep safe.